The kids' table was set up in the corner of the private dining room at Maison, right next to the kitchen doors. The same doors that servers kept swinging open with hot trays, so I'd have to lean out of the way every few minutes. For folding chairs, a paper tablecloth, plastic plates, a sad little plastic turkey centerpiece that I recognized from my mother's Thanksgiving decoration bin at home, and a name card, written in my mother's handwriting. Elena, kids' table. I was 32 years old. I stood there for a long moment, holding my coat, looking at that table while the rest of my family settled into the main table. The one with the linen tablecloth. The one with the crystal glassware. The one with the fine china that my mother had brought from home. The table where I was supposed to sit. My sister Paige was already seated at the adult table, scrolling through her phone, not looking at me. My brother-in-law Mark was pouring himself wine from a bottle I knew cost $120. My uncle was laughing at something my father said. My cousins were passing bread baskets. And I was standing next to a folding chair with a faded cartoon turkey on it, wondering if this was really happening. My mother appeared beside me with a tight smile. She was wearing her good pearls, the ones my father gave her for their 25th anniversary. She said, "Elena, sweetie. You understand, right? We have 14 adults this year and the table only seats 12. And you're single this year." It just made more sense. Single this year. My divorce had been finalized 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks. I was still unpacking boxes in my new apartment. I was still waking up at 3 in the morning reaching for someone who wasn't there. And my family's solution was to put me at the kids' table. She patted my arm. "Next year, maybe you'll have someone. Then you can sit with the adults." Then she walked back to the main table and sat down next to my father, leaving me standing alone with a paper plate and a plastic turkey my mother had dug out of her garage. My name is Elena Castellano. I'm 32 years old. And that was the moment I realized my family had already written my story for me. They had decided who I was. The divorced one. The struggling one. The one who didn't quite measure up. But they didn't know the rest of my story. Not yet. Stay with me. Because what they thought was a humiliating dinner turned into something they'd never forget. Welcome to Calm Verdict Stories, where betrayal never goes unanswered, and justice is always served cold. If you're new here, please subscribe. Your support means everything. For 10 years, I was the family disappointment. I'd been a high school English teacher. I loved it. I was good at it. But in my family, being a teacher wasn't enough. My sister Paige was a corporate lawyer at a firm in downtown Chicago. My cousin Derek was a surgical resident. My brother-in-law Mark was a venture capitalist, which apparently meant he wore expensive suits and talked about other people's money. Me? I was just a teacher. And then I married Kevin. Kevin was a musician. He was kind. He was gentle. He was terrible with money. My family never liked him. They made that very clear. When Kevin and I divorced 4 years ago, my family didn't say they were sorry for my loss. They said, "We told you so." They decided that my failed marriage meant I was bad at making decisions. That I couldn't be trusted. That I needed to be managed. They didn't say it out loud. They didn't have to. They showed it every single day. Here's what they didn't know. After the divorce, I needed a fresh start. I needed to feel like I was good at something. So I took the small savings I had left, $15,000, and I started a catering company. Small at first. Lunch deliveries to offices. Finger foods for corporate events. I did everything myself. I cooked, I drove, I set up tables, I washed dishes. I worked 18-hour days and collapsed into bed every night with flour still under my fingernails. Then a private client hired me for their daughter's wedding. 600 guests. A historic venue. A menu I designed myself over 3 months of sleepless nights. That wedding changed everything. Over the next 4 years, I grew the business slowly. Steadily. I reinvested every dollar back into the company. By year 2, I had a commercial kitchen. By year 3, I had 10 employees. By year 4, I had 23 employees, a second kitchen, and a reputation. I was catering gallery openings, political fundraisers, private dinners for people whose names you'd recognize. My company had grown to $3.5 million in annual revenue. We had a waitlist 6 weeks long. My family didn't know any of this. I never told them. Why didn't I tell them? Because I knew exactly what would happen. If I told them I was successful, they'd find a way to make it small. They'd say, "That's nice, honey. Paige just made partner at her firm." If I told them I was thriving, they'd find a way to make it about themselves. They'd say, "We always knew you had potential. If only you'd listened to us sooner." So I kept my mouth shut. I let them think I was still doing little catering jobs on the side. I let Paige's comments roll off my back. I let my mother's gentle disappointment settle like dust on every conversation. It was easier that way. And it was safer. Because the thing you don't tell people can never be taken from you. But then came this Thanksgiving. Paige had decided that we should do something elevated this year. Something grown up. She'd booked the private dining room at Maison, the most exclusive French restaurant in the city. $400 a person. 3-month wait list. My mother couldn't stop talking about it. Paige is so thoughtful. She planned everything herself. She's been working on this for months. I smiled and nodded. I didn't say anything. I didn't say that I knew Maison intimately. I didn't say that my company had been their exclusive private event catering partner for the last 2 years. I didn't say that I had personally designed their seasonal tasting menu alongside Chef Daniel. The one they were about to eat. I didn't say that Maison paid my company a $50,000 annual retainer for menu consulting and event overflow catering. I didn't say that 90% of the food on that table had come through a supply chain I helped negotiate. I just smiled. And I said nothing. Let me be clear about what I actually was to Maison. I wasn't an owner. I wasn't on the board. I was something better, I was indispensable. 2 years ago, Maison's parent company had approached my catering firm to solve a problem. Their private dining program was bleeding money. Their event revenue was down. They needed a partner who could handle overflow, design better banquet menus, and bring in outside corporate clients. My company won the contract. And over the next 18 months, we more than doubled their event revenue. Chef Daniel and I had worked side by side on the fall menu. We'd spent days tasting, tweaking, perfecting. The roasted turkey on that table? The brine recipe was mine. The stuffing? That was a Castellano family recipe I'd adapted. The cranberry sauce with orange zest and rosemary? I developed it in my kitchen and taught it to his line cooks. The staff knew me. The maitre d' knew me. The servers knew me. Daniel knew me. And they all knew that if I ever needed anything, I only had to ask. The day before Thanksgiving, my mother called me. "Elena, Paige is very stressed about the seating arrangements. The main table really only seats 12, and there are 14 of us. Would you mind terribly if you sat at a smaller table? Just this once? I'll bring the paper plates from home. You won't be any trouble." I was in my commercial kitchen. I was standing over a tasting menu for a client who was paying me $45,000 for a New Year's Eve gala. I had flour on my hands. I had 3 stations running behind me. I said, "Sure, Mom. Whatever works." I didn't ask where the smaller table would be. I assumed it would be nearby. A secondary table, maybe. Something reasonable. I assumed wrong. When I walked into Maison's private dining room on Thanksgiving evening, I was wearing a black dress. Simple. Elegant. I'd brought a bottle of wine that cost $200, a gift for my father. The main table was gorgeous. Linen. Crystal. Flowers. Candles. My mother had outdone herself with the decorations she'd brought. Paige was at the head of the table, holding court like a queen. And then I saw it. The kids' table. In the corner. By the kitchen doors. Paper plates. Plastic cups. A cartoon turkey from my mother's garage bin. And my name. Written in her handwriting. Elena, kids table. I stood there for a full 30 seconds. A server bumped into me with a tray of appetizers. I didn't move. My mother's voice came from behind me. Elena, sweetie. You understand, right? I understand, Mom. I understand more than you know. I looked around the room. The main table was full. My sister Paige was at the head, telling a story about a case she'd won. My brother-in-law Mark was nodding along, refilling his wine glass. My father was laughing at something my uncle said. My cousins were passing champagne flutes. And I was standing next to a paper tablecloth with a cartoon turkey. I could have done something then. I could have walked into the kitchen and had Daniel seat me at the chef's table. I could have called the maitre d' and had a proper table set up. I could have told them the truth right then and there. But I didn't. Because that's not how calm verdicts work. I smiled. I said, "Of course, Mom. I understand." And I sat down at the kids' table. I was 32 years old, seated between a 10-year-old who was playing on a tablet and a 7-year-old who was building a fortress out of dinner rolls. My nephew Leo looked at me. "Why are you sitting here?" I said, "Because Grandma thinks I'm still a kid." He said, "That's dumb. You're old." "Thanks, Leo." The 7-year-old, Mia, offered me a dinner roll. "Do you want to help me build a wall?" I said, "Sure. Let's build the best wall this table has ever seen." And we did. We built a fortress out of bread. It had turrets. It had a gate. It was magnificent. I was eating off a paper plate, but at least I was eating with people who didn't judge me. Dinner was served. The food was incredible. The roasted turkey was perfectly brined. The stuffing was herbal and rich. The mashed potatoes were velvety and smooth. The cranberry sauce had orange zest and a hint of rosemary. I knew every single dish intimately. I'd helped develop 4 of them. The brine, the stuffing, the potatoes, the cranberry sauce, those were mine. 6 weeks of testing in my kitchen, then 3 days training Chef Daniel's line cooks on the final versions. And here I was, eating my own recipes off a paper plate, while my family toasted to another successful year at a table that was eating food I'd designed. Halfway through dinner, Paige stood up. She tapped her glass with a fork. "I just want to say a few words," she said, smiling. Of course she did. She talked about how grateful she was for family. How this was the best Thanksgiving ever. How she'd worked so hard to make it special. How she hoped everyone appreciated the effort. Then she looked at me. "And Elena," she said, with that smile she'd perfected over 32 years, "I hope you're comfortable back there. We thought about moving you up, but the table really couldn't fit another chair. You understand." I smiled. "Totally comfortable. The kids are great company." My uncle snorted. "At least someone's at the right table." Laughter rippled through the main table. I took another bite of my stuffing. My stuffing. And I smiled. My father raised his glass. "To Paige," he said. "For making this happen. And to Mark, for his incredible year." Everyone cheered. I clapped too. Then my uncle said, "And to Elena's little catering gig. I hear you're making sandwiches for office parties or something?" More laughter. I said, "Something like that." My mother smiled sympathetically. It's good she has something to keep her busy. After everything with Kevin. I kept smiling. I kept eating my dinner off a paper plate. But inside, something was clicking into place. The calm verdict had begun. I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. I texted one person. "Daniel. I'm in the private dining room. At the kids' table. My family put me here. Can you help me make a point?" His reply came within 10 seconds. "I've been waiting for you to ask. Give me 10 minutes." I put my phone away and went back to building a bread fortress with Mia. 10 minutes later, the dessert course was served. Maison's signature dessert is a chocolate tart with gold leaf and a caramelized orange glaze. It costs $40 a slice. Every adult at the main table got one. And then the kitchen doors swung open, and a server walked out with a plate for the kids' table. But it wasn't for the kids. It was for me. The server set down a plate covered with a silver cloche. She said quietly, "Compliments of Chef Daniel, Ms. Castellano." Not madam. Not dear. Ms. Castellano. My professional name. The name on my business license. The name on Maison's vendor contracts. I lifted the cloche. Underneath was a single, perfect chocolate tart. Gold leaf. Orange glaze. Edible flowers. And a handwritten note on Maison's letterhead. The note said, "Without you, this menu wouldn't exist. Enjoy. Daniel." Paige saw it first. "What is that?" she said, craning her neck. I smiled. "Dessert. How come she gets a special dessert? We all got the same thing." "Not the same thing," I said. "Mine has a note." I turned the note toward her. She squinted at it. "Without you, this menu wouldn't exist," she read aloud. "What does that mean?" I shrugged. "I have no idea." Paige called over the server. "Excuse me. Why did she get a special plate? And what does this note mean?" The server glanced at me. I gave her the smallest nod. She said, "Ms. Castellano is the owner of the catering company that designed this menu, ma'am. Chef Daniel holds her work in very high regard." Silence. Absolute silence. My mother's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. My father put down his wine glass. Mark froze mid-sentence. Paige said, "What?" I took a bite of my chocolate tart. It was perfect. "Designed the menu?" my father said. I wiped my mouth with a napkin. A paper napkin. Because I was at the kids' table. "4 of the dishes you just ate," I said. "The turkey brine. The stuffing. The mashed potatoes. The cranberry sauce. Those are my recipes. My company consults for Maison's menu development. We're also their exclusive overflow caterer for private events." "You consult for Maison?" Mark said. 2 years now. My company has an exclusive catering and menu development contract with their parent company. We're their primary vendor for private dining." "And you never told us?" "You never asked. You were too busy asking about Paige's cases and Mark's deals." My uncle, who had made the comment about sandwiches, suddenly became very interested in his wine glass. My mother's face was a mixture of shock and something that looked like shame. Paige's face, on the other hand, was pure fury. "You've been hiding this," she said. "I haven't been hiding anything. I've been living my life. You just never looked. We ask about your life all the time." "When, Paige?" "When exactly?" "At dinner, when you talk for 40 minutes about your cases? At family gatherings, when you and Mark compete about who had the better year? When have you ever asked me a question and actually waited for the answer?" She opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. Nothing came out. My father cleared his throat. "Elena, this is a lot to process. Why didn't you tell us sooner?" I looked at him. "At all of them. Because every time I tried to share something good, you made it small. I told you I passed my sommelier certification, and you said that's nice. I told you I got my first big catering contract, and you changed the subject to Paige's promotion. I told you I was getting divorced, and you said we never liked him anyway, like that was supposed to help." I stood up from the kids' table. "So I stopped telling you. And I focused on building something for myself. Something that made me proud. Something that didn't need your approval to be real. And I succeeded. Not because of you. In spite of you." My mother was crying. "We didn't know. You didn't want to know. There's a difference." I reached into my purse and pulled out an envelope. I'd been holding onto it all night. I got you a gift, I said. I was going to wait until later. But now seems like the right time. I handed the envelope to my mother. She opened it. Inside was a voucher. A voucher for a full Thanksgiving dinner. Catered by my company. At my mother's house. Next year. With a note that said, table for 14. Including a seat for me. At the main table. My mother started sobbing. My father looked at me with something I'd never seen before. Respect. How big is your company now? He asked. 23 employees. 2 commercial kitchens. 3.5 million in annual revenue. We have a waiting list 6 weeks out. He nodded slowly. Elena, that's incredible. It is. And I would have loved to share it with you. But I needed you to see me first. Not the version of me you decided I was. He reached for my hand. I see you now. I'm sorry it took this. Paige stood up. Her chair scraped loudly against the floor. Fine, she said. You win. You're successful. Congratulations. You want a round of applause? I shook my head. I don't want applause. I want a sister who asks how I'm doing. I want a family who sees me for who I am, not who I was. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she sat back down. She didn't say anything else for the rest of the night. The kitchen doors swung open. Chef Daniel walked out. He was still in his chef's coat, holding a bottle of champagne. I heard you were in the building, he said, handing me the bottle. This one's on me. Congratulations on the hotel contract, by the way. I saw the announcement. My mother looked at him. The hotel contract? Your daughter just signed a deal with the Langham, Daniel said. They're using her company for all their event catering. It's $1 million contract. My mother looked at me. $1 million? It's a 3-year deal, I said. I signed it last week. My mother, still crying, looked at me. Can we move you to the main table? Please. There's room now. I'll move the kids somewhere else. I looked at the kids' table. At my nephew Leo, who was now covered in chocolate. At Mia, who had built a masterpiece out of bread. At the cartoon turkey my mother had brought from her garage. No, I said. I think I'll stay. I'm comfortable here. And I stayed. I finished my dinner at the kids' table. I helped Leo finish his chocolate tart. I helped Mia build an even bigger bread fortress. I let the 10-year-old try my gold leaf dessert. And when dinner was over, I helped clear the kids' table before I left. I stacked the paper plates. I folded the folding chairs. I packed up the cartoon turkey and handed it to my mother. Keep this, I said. I want to remember tonight. My mother hugged me at the door. She whispered in my ear, I'm so proud of you. I said, I know. But you should have said it sooner. She held me tighter. I'm sorry, Elena. I'm so sorry. I believed her. I think. That was 2 years ago. Things changed after that night. Slowly. Imperfectly. But they changed. My mother calls me more now. She asks about work. She actually listens when I answer. She came to visit my commercial kitchen. She spent an hour watching my teamwork. She told me she was proud of me. She'd never said that before. My father came to see me too. He walked through my kitchen, asked questions about every station, shook hands with my head chef. He told me he was wrong about me. He said, I didn't see what you were building. And I'm sorry for that. And Paige? It took months. Months of silence. Months of awkward family dinners. But eventually, she came over. We had coffee. She apologized. She said she didn't realize how much she'd been making me feel small. That she was jealous. That she was sorry. I believed her. Mostly. Mark's venture capital firm went under 8 months later. He lost everything. My sister had to sell their house. She called me, crying. I hired her. Not as a lawyer. My company isn't big enough for a full-time lawyer. I hired her as an operations manager. She's good at it. She's organized. She's ruthless. She's perfect for the role. She works for me now. And every time we have a company meeting, I make sure she has a seat at the table. A good one. Not in the corner. Not near the kitchen doors. Because I know what it's like to not have a seat. My company is worth over $7 million now. I own 3 commercial kitchens. I employ over 60 people. I cater events for Fortune 500 companies. I sponsor scholarships for culinary students from underprivileged backgrounds. And every Thanksgiving, I cater my mother's dinner. Linen tablecloths. Crystal glassware. The works. My mother still uses the voucher I gave her that night. Every year, she pulls it out and shows it to anyone who hasn't seen it yet. And every year, I sit at the main table. Next to her. Because she made sure there was a seat for me. I don't hold grudges. That's not who I am. But I remember. I remember what it felt like to be the one at the kids' table. The one everyone overlooked. The one they decided wasn't worth including. I remember the sound of my uncle's laugh. The look on Paige's face. The way my mother said, "You understand, right?" That memory keeps me humble. And it keeps me hungry. I'm Elena Castellano. I'm 34 years old. I own my own company. I employ people who believe in me. I sit at whatever table I want. And I never, ever let anyone make me feel small again. If you've ever been the person at the kids' table, the one your family forgot to see, the one they wrote off, the one they decided wasn't worth a seat, I want you to know this. Your value isn't determined by the seat they give you. It's determined by what you build when they're not watching. Keep building. Keep growing. Keep your mouth shut if you have to. Let them underestimate you. Let them put you in the corner. And when the time comes to sit at the main table, don't apologize. Don't explain. Don't gloat. Just sit down. You belong there. You always did. Thank you for listening to my story on Calm Verdict Stories. If this story stayed with you, please like this video, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. Your stories keep me going. I'm Elena. I'm thriving. And my place at the table was never up for negotiation. I'll see you in the next one.